Thank you, Monique. Good afternoon for those of you joining me from Europe. Good morning for those of you joining me on the west side of the US. As Monique mentioned, this is a repeat of the content that I talked through at the recent Front-End of Innovation Conference at Philadelphia, in Orlando, and also building upon some of the themes of the Open Innovation Conference in Philadelphia. So if those of you that perhaps didn't have a chance to see that content and wanted to get another look at it, then I'm very happy to share this material. So the things I'm going to be talking through today is really the drive for open innovation, why organizations are beginning to look outside for breakthroughs, and then some of the more tactical things about how actually can we go beyond the enterprise to generate interesting insights from those groups and those individuals that sit beyond their boundaries. And of course, one of the biggest challenges is trying to create a structure for that, create a program, do so in an effective way, so that as we progress and as we bring in those insights, we do so in a way which is organized, consistent, and is sustainable for the organization as a whole. And as part of this process, I'll be sharing with you a couple of tools that we use and some experiences and a couple of case studies from our clients using this kind of approach. So just to introduce myself, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Director of Strategic Consulting at Hype, which essentially means that I care about people and process primarily. I'm interested in how do we generate interest and participation in our open innovation programs and our internal innovation programs, and to ensure that when people do participate, they do so at a high level of quality and in line with the things that our businesses and our organizations care about. So what that means in practice is, yes, we're a software company and that's how we drive our revenues, but we understand that the people and process side has a very significant role to play in ensuring that we have sustainable, effective innovation programs, and that's my role, to try and bridge that gap between your objectives, your culture, your structures, and the software that is going to enable an effective process. My background, before I entered this industry of innovation and idea management, two areas of interest. The first one is market research. I did a lot of work in actually designing questions, which any of you involved in collaborative innovation know the power of questions is crucial to drive really good activities, really good answers, really good ideas. The second role, and I think there's a lot of synergies between this world of innovation management and two previous fields, information management and knowledge management, quite dramatically. So that's a little bit about me. So for those of you that don't know Hype, I think we can categorize what we do into two big buckets. The first one is about the front end. It's about harnessing collective expertise from diverse groups of people, irrespective of whether they're employees, customers, partners, people that have retired from our organization. But then, importantly, managing that content that we have, those insights, those solutions to problems, those ideas, through to some form of business value, through to some form of material benefit. And the two parts of the process do go hand in hand, and both are crucial. We can't generate really good transformational change within our organizations unless we generate diverse insights, but equally, unless we have a good process to manage those insights through to implementation, then we may well find we're wasting our time, or we can't deliver on what we've promised. Now, you can apply those two themes, those two buckets, to a whole range of different activities. Clearly, in most organizations, we're talking about core product, service, process innovation. But equally, these sorts of techniques are applied to a whole range of different core business issues. These could be cost improvement, best practice sharing, continuous improvement, anywhere where we're looking for a diversity of opinion on things that we care about, and where we want to then take that diversity of opinion through to some form of implementation. Just a couple more things about how we see the world. We are, from a software perspective, we have two kind of ways in which we work. We have best practices built into specific applications which pretty much come off the shelf, configured, of course, for your organization, but essentially a variety of different starting points for organizations to use. And we also do very customizable solutions as well for organizations that have a specific process in mind and simply want to replicate that within some secure, robust software. Apologies, my slides are going slightly faster than I'm talking. A bit of background about the company. We've been doing this, as Monique said, for over 11 years now. We're heading up to around 100 employees. And those people are spread across Europe, the Middle East, and the US. headquartered in Bonn, Germany, and our US head office is in Boston. And all we do is idea and innovation management and the associated processes and consulting that support that. Very wide variety of customers. We work in almost every industry. We see a lot of synergies between the engagement piece, how do we drive good levels of participation across the different organizations. And we do a lot of considering what works in different situations. So if your culture is very conservative and very traditional R&D based, how that is different to a culture which is perhaps very new, it's very dynamic, it's very whiz-bang, and keen to push forward with exciting new innovations. Very different cultures. Of course, then there's the location consideration as well. We find that different audiences behave differently within corporate innovation programs. So if you operate globally, you have lots of people in different countries. We've seen lots of examples of how we need to be able to bring different expertise together at different times effectively to drive through to really good outcomes. So we talked about this end-to-end process, front to back end. This is the way we tend to think about it. Crowd ideas through to business value. So some organizations work within just one of these segments, but many organizations increasingly are working across all three. So idea generation, bringing new people into the innovation program, then doing some selection, some evaluation, some enrichment to make sure we choose and select the best ideas, and then through to actually delivery, so innovation portfolio management, managing innovation programs. And an organization like P&G manages around $6 billion US dollars worth of innovation portfolio in that back-end process, that piece on the right-hand side. Some of our clients will just work with us on the left-hand side, some of us will just work with us on the right-hand side, and some of us will work right across that ecosystem of front to back end. So we use this sort of term end-to-end, and this typically, in language I think that most people understand, goes through a series of phases. So idea campaigns, generating ideas, making selection upon those ideas, managing those ideas, combining them, enriching them through to concepts, and then finally into innovation projects. And our mature organizations recognize that this isn't necessarily just a very simple funnel. This is a process where we go in, and it's a very staged approach where different insights, different expertise, different knowledge comes in at different times. And so it's about expanding our net, finding new ideas, and then it's about consolidating, making decisions, and expanding again. So moving on. Apologies if the slide transitions are a little slow. So you found out about me, you found out about Hype. Let's talk about what I want to cover primarily today. We'll start off with this drive towards fishing in a bigger pond. So going out beyond the organization for new ideas, what's driving that, why it's important, and some of the challenges and opportunities that sit around that. We'll also share the practical tools that we use in our day-to-day work, thinking about open innovation with our clients, some stuff that you'll be able to take away, and some stuff, of course, we keep for ourselves. We'll share some examples of this approach as well, and round up with a roadmap for going beyond the enterprise, applying some of this stuff in practice. So let's start off with what I hear every day. I think there are two big things that I tend to pick up. The first one is we need to look in new places. We need to find different perspectives, different ideas. Perhaps if we've been innovating within a core group, we're not finding breakthrough innovations anymore. We're finding relatively similar step change improvements, but there's nothing that's going to transform us, nothing that's going to drive a breakthrough. There's also an increasing recognition that we want to get increased diversity of opinion, and we need to include non-experts in the things that we do. The reason for that, of course, is a lot of creativity comes from that tension between people with different perspectives, so experts and non-experts, people involved in developing things as well as people involved in putting things into practice. Internally, we recognize this. Corporate innovation programs are becoming much more prevalent, but externally, this is also true, but it creates with it some significant some headaches and some challenges which we'll address as we progress. So what does this really mean? Perhaps if you're a traditional R&D based innovation group, you're used to innovating within a relatively small team. And some of our customers absolutely started off here. And maybe it's a relatively traditional approach, perhaps we're not finding anything new. So the natural step to that, of course, is to go out to the department, to go out another step, go out a little bit further from that team. It's at it's an important step, and it's an important step that we do make. But of course, that still might lack a little bit of diversity. Perhaps we're not finding that we're getting enough diversity of opinion just there. So of course we progress and we go out to the enterprise, and again, that's really a crucial thing for corporate innovation programs. We're attacking the fringes of the organization now, the non-experts, the people that perhaps know a little bit about what we do but are not involved in it day to day. And a lot of creativity comes from that. Now, and of course, the natural progression, the final piece of the jigsaw is going beyond the enterprise and everything that comes with that. This is the widest possible net. And of course, there are some good reasons for taking this journey and moving out to the right. The first good reason, of course, is we can generate more ideas, greater diversity of ideas. It's a much wider net of expertise, different insights, different perspectives. But of course, that comes with some challenges. We may feel there's less control. We're less secure about the information that we're sharing, and perhaps increasing concerns about, well, what about IP, as we poll and we discuss and we create with these groups far beyond our organizational boundaries. The other challenge, of course, is the further out we go, the less clear understanding we have about what actually motivates the people out there on the fringes to actually collaborate with us, to innovate with us, to create with us, to help us solve problems. And so we need to think very carefully about how we're actually going to ask people to support our innovation program and why they should support them. Okay, moving on. I want to just paint for you a vision to start off with, a vision of integrated enterprise innovation. This is the kind of trend that we're seeing. Most people are not there yet, but this is the direction that people are heading. Traditionally, we may have thought about innovation as a new product development or R&D type activity. But increasingly what we're seeing is organizations establishing customer-driven innovation programs. You may say that's not new. Indeed, it's not. Things like focus groups have existed for many years. But systematized, wider, enterprise-level, customer-driven innovation programs that integrate the best minds internally and the best minds externally together is something that the organizations are beginning to get their head around. We're also seeing supplier and partner integrated innovation programs. So you carefully select third parties that can help you within your organization, those that can help you co-create, those that can help you solve problems, those that can give you feedback, and select which expertise you need in order to support your business. The sort of most common area of innovation across silos within the organization is this business need activity. So we start off with a significant challenge or an opportunity that we see within the organization, and we pull the expertise and knowledge and insights from wherever it may sit. So it might be in different divisions, it might be across different support functions, but we pull that expertise as we need it. And of course then, to complement that, ongoing expertise sharing, process innovation that sits across all the different areas of the business, trying to improve what we do, essentially supercharging things like continuous improvement. Now this is the vision that's being painted by a company called Nokia Siemens Networks, who over the last 2 years generated $1.5 billion worth of new revenue with this kind of approach. Obviously there's a lot of detail underneath this. This is a really interesting vision that's beginning to get painted by innovation leaders like NSN. Second thing I want to refer you to is, and again it forms the bedrock of this presentation, is a white paper that we supported written by Hayden Shaughnessy, a thought leader in the innovation writing world, contributed to by 4 of our key customers, Bombardier, Nokia Siemens Networks, P&G, and Caterpillar. 4 organizations coming at this from very, very different perspectives, but having fascinating insights. So just to highlight, Bombardier do a lot of cross-silo innovation. Nokia Siemens Networks have this enterprise ecosystem approach. P&G do a lot of back-end innovation. And Caterpillar have an integrated continuous improvement and front-end innovation program. It's a really interesting read, and anybody that wants to take a look at it, follow that link or contact info@hypeinnovation.com. So thinking about that innovation ecosystem and the material that we saw as part of this white paper has helped stimulate a lot of this thinking. So let's move on. Let's have a look at the challenges. What's holding organizations back from going outside? These are the sort of 5 things that I hear most commonly. There's an acceptance that, the world's best experts in what we do, many of them do not work for us. So we have to accept that, and we have to find a way of getting and tapping into that expertise as and when we have the opportunity. We need different perspectives. People that have lived and breathed what we do for the last 10, 20 years are not necessarily driving innovation anymore. we need to find a new way to get that diversity of opinion in. There's also an acceptance that open innovation is not new, and open innovation to seek breakthroughs is not new. But we do need to organize it better. Technology gives us some things that enable us to do things at greater scale. We can do things with greater levels of security using technology. But we do need to think quite carefully about how we apply that technology. Just because it's possible doesn't mean it's necessarily appropriate. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And obviously what we're seeking is to get the best minds both internally and externally working together. So creating together, solving problems together, and making sure that everybody gets a piece of the pie so that it's not just a one-way street. So I think we can link all that together with this one statement at the bottom, which is we really want to make the company more profitable, we want to drive greater revenues, we want to do so more efficiently. And to do so, we want to harness different perspectives. That's going to help the business. Well, that's all fine and great, and that's clearly what a lot of people feel, and that's what's driving a lot of this this thinking around going out beyond the organizational boundaries. But let's have a look at what we're doing right now. We can't solve a problem or make the best out of an opportunity without recognizing how it looks today. First thing to recognize is that ideas come in to our organization all the time from external sources, different groups, suppliers, partners, people that are retired, academia, society at large, and it's quite a chaotic picture. You get ideas of different scales, different sizes, different approaches being fired at us from all different directions. And we have no control where those ideas and those solutions and those insights actually end up, because some of them may be pushed to experts that we have in the company, some might be pushed to salespeople or account managers, others might be pushed through procurement. We have no consistent, coherent way of managing this diversity of expertise that's thrusting itself at our organization. The other challenge, of course, is actually recognizing that not all third parties are equal in nature. Some are much more easy to co-create with, some are much more easy to engage with. I mean, I've done a very simple color coding there, and I'll explain that in a second, but not everybody in this picture has an equal level of support for the type of collaboration we may wish. So it's a complex picture, and how do we rationalize that? Well, if we look at the picture that Nokia Siemens Networks have built for us, they've actually put their innovation team front and center of innovation activities with external partners. So instead of putting procurement out there or putting the lawyers out there, they put the innovation team out there, which calls upon the expertise that it needs at any particular time. They also categorize and group different third parties in different ways. So they have different models for engaging with different groups. So they retain their ability to do things like focus groups and customer communities. But they also have electronic means to, say, for example, run idea campaigns with specific groups as and when they need them. So the innovation team acts as the expert group that facilitates this open innovation activity, pulling ideas, insights, and knowledge from selected third parties based on previously thinking about which ones are most able to help us based on specific needs within the organization. Now, this may feel a long way away from where you are now, but I think it's really quite interesting because we're beginning to see this trend getting established in more and more organizations. Selecting which groups to innovate first with, pulling the expertise from those groups, and using that innovation team to coordinate all the expertise that sits both internally and externally. So moving on, some blockers, some challenges, and I think it's only fair that we address some of these common myths that we're beginning to see perpetuated around this area. The first one is the legal side of things. I think there's a common perception that lawyers are a problem within the innovation activity. They may be perceived to be blocking opportunities to bring ideas in from outside the organization. And perhaps the legal protections that they insist you put in place are complicated, that you fear they're going to strangle the life out of the creative process. Now, I had a lot of experience in sitting down with lawyers as part of the open innovation process myself, and my view is actually, honestly, it's really quite a different picture that can be painted. I think we typically avoid the lawyers because we're fearful of what controls they may put in place, but we always have to address them. Interestingly, I think they recognize that ideas come into the organization all the time from external sources, and they're often playing catch-up, trying to work out where the ideas have come from, who owns the IP, how we're going to control that moving forward through the organization itself. Actually, I think legal teams recognize that if we can control this better, if we can have one coherent group that are controlling the interaction around innovation with external parties, that's not to say they control all interactions with external parties, but just the new innovation activities. That actually putting some software in place to manage and support and record those interactions is a valuable part of the process. So actually having software managing those conversations, the sharing of information, the co-creation activities, the feedback, actually gives them greater confidence. We know where the information comes from, we know when we're sharing IP and when we're not, and we're doing so in a very deliberate way with the appropriate controls in the right places. And often I think that they're very helpful in indicating to you which third parties have existing legal protections in place under existing contracts, so that we can actually start conversations very quickly, which is incredibly helpful if we're thinking about prioritizing our time, which third parties are going to be best able to help us in the short term. Second myth I want to take a look at is actually how to start and where to start. By definition, outside of our organization is almost infinite. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of organizations and third parties and consumer groups and various different people that we could go and collaborate with if we so chose. But which ones do we actually start with? How do we know this is going to be valuable? What happens if we pick the wrong partners to go and create with? You know, we're going to look a little foolish. And I think actually the way to think about this is to start saying, well, maybe what we should do is actually rank third-party groups against specific suitability criteria according to how suitable they are to actually support our open innovation programs in the first place. If we do that, then maybe we'll be able to pick and select those third parties in a much more strategic way. And I think that with those organizations, those that you pick carefully for, they're much more likely to welcome wider levels of collaboration, especially those people that sit in supplier and partner communities, where perhaps there is a vested interest in your success already. And I think it's all really about being very clear about what we want to achieve with which third parties and why, and focusing those activities through the right channels. So we don't want to do everything all of the time. We want to carefully select our approach with the right groups at the right time. And the third myth I want to look at is the end consumer myth. Many organizations, when they think about open innovation, think end consumers, particularly obviously in the B2C environment. And that's not to say that it doesn't have value. I think it does. But in many ways, it's one of the most challenging areas to start. The thinking often goes, well, we have large, great focus groups. They're very productive for us. If we've got 1,000 people in our focus group, just think about what 100,000 people could offer for us. And think about those end consumers. They're really going to welcome the chance to engage with us in a more strategic way and offer great insights. That's going to be a very valuable resource for us. Especially if you do it online, it's going to be ensure that they can participate without actually coming to meet us face to face. You know, our honest findings are that the reality is a little different. The first thing is to say that people with serious business proposals don't submit those online in a public forum. Why would they? It's potentially their IP, they don't want to share that, and they'll do so in a closed box, or they'll send you a proposal, or they'll do something face-to-face. So doing something online at scale, unless you're very careful, isn't going to welcome serious business proposals. The other thing that we find, and this is a big issue, if we look at internal programs, one of the biggest drivers of innovation is the level of collaboration. So the more collaboration we can drive, the better our innovation and greater levels of creativity that we see are. Consumers won't collaborate with each other. There's no reason for them to do so. They may vote, they may say they like something, but they're not going to build and improve ideas transformationally in general terms. So what you're not going to see is 100 people collaborating effectively with each other to make each other's ideas really, really strong. And the third area, of course, if you're a commodity provider, then consumers may not be especially motivated to help you innovate. Now, having said all of that, there are good reasons why you may wish to have consumer innovation programs out there online, understanding that of all the areas to start, this is the most challenging to really drive great innovations from. So, with all that in mind, let's have a think about the next piece. Some practical tools to try and make some of this real. The first one is scoring third-party groups in line with 4 core measures to ensure that we pick the right groups for the right purposes at the right time. And none of this is rocket science, but it's a really handy check. And this is the first tool that we use. The first one is vested interest. does the third party that you're looking to engage with have a good reason and a vested interest to share? In the case of partners and suppliers, the answer is probably yes. In the answers of consumers, it may not be. Clearly, those people with a vested interest in your success are much more interested in supporting you commercially and supporting you as a business. If there is no vested interest, you may have to create one if you really want those insights. Second piece of the puzzle is the quality of the relationship. Even if the third party does have a vested interest in your success, if the quality of the relationship is poor or undermined by the day job, then the chances of them really supporting you creatively are lesser. So we need to think about what our current position is with each individual group. Thirdly, model of engagement. Technically, can we get at these people? Do we know who they are? Can we support them in an effective way so that they can collaborate with us and share genuine insights in an effective way? If we're dealing with society, we may need to market a program of collaborative innovation if we don't know who it is that might actually bring the ideas to us. And finally, commercial considerations. Are there existing contracts that cover IP and knowledge sharing and any confidential information that's shared, or do we need to put something in place? And what level of legal protection do we need to put in place to support the discussion that we need? And we can quite easily rank any third party on these four measures. And it's an incredibly helpful way of thinking and rationalizing which third parties are best placed to support us. Now, you may positively choose to do something where perhaps an organization doesn't score incredibly well on this because you have genuine reasons for doing so. But at least if you know where your weak areas are, you can proactively manage that. And then if you take this on one step further, you can think about just trying to aggregate that and giving a general view of which third parties score on which level, and we can rank them on a relatively easy green, amber, red scale. And we typically group these organizations into three categories. So unsurprisingly, the green organizations, these are people where there's usually some legal protections in place already. They may need may need to add to those, but usually there is some form of legal protections in place, and often there's an existing relationship as well. And so obviously those are the sorts of organizations that are best placed to support your organization quickly. The amber organizations, well, there may well be a good reason for them to help you. They may well care dramatically about your brand, about your company, but you may not have legal protections in place already, and you may need to look at the relationship that you have as well. And obviously, if that's the case, then we're going to need to do some extra work to ensure we have a robust and effective process. And then the third group, the red marked organizations, they're going to require more marketing effort to get them engaged. Perhaps they're people that we don't yet know, or perhaps they're consumers, or we have we have no actual way of getting at those individuals. We're going to need to tell people that we want them involved, we want their support. And often you're going to have to put legal protections in place, disclaimers or IP restrictions on the type of activities you do to ensure it's an effective process. Very simply, grouping different supplier groups, different community groups, different society groups into very simple types of trends. This isn't precise, but it is a general sort of piece of guidance, and I think it's a very effective way of thinking about things. Second tool I want to share with you is something called the Hype Open Innovation Matrix, and this is really a recognition to say that not all open innovation programs are the same. And to illustrate what I mean, I want to talk about 7 key questions that we see coming up every single time in an open innovation program. I think there's a temptation to believe that there's probably 3 or 4 different types of open innovation program, but that's about it. In reality, there are many, and I'm going to illustrate what I mean in a second. So these 7 core questions, again, none of this is rocket science, but you'll begin to see that they're applicable for almost any open innovation program you see. So who's going to participate? What's the purpose of this project? Who are we going to target? What are we looking to exchange between the two groups? How we actually engage this audience, and what's the driver behind it? Of course, any legal protections we need to put in place. So we created this Hype Open Innovation Matrix really to address these questions and make sure no matter what program we have a way to ensure that we've taken almost every consideration as possible and confirm that we have an effective program put in place. So if I just move on, you can see under each area we have a variety of options. And we can actually map out any open innovation project that you see, be it public or closed open innovation project, according to these different messages. So let's have a play around. Let's see what this looks like. Here's an example supplier co-creation map. So the purpose is co-creation. The addressee, it's this particular supplier. We're going to drive this from our new business development group. What we're actually looking to exchange here are insights. Why would people participate at all? Well, actually there's some commercial joint benefit. The engagement model, that's actually a high technical model that we have called joint engagement, which essentially is a secure, separate open innovation project, which is invitee only, where you control the access. And then finally, what legal protections do we need in place? In this case, we're going to protect IP with a disclaimer that we put in place. So that's just an example. I'm going to show you some real examples as well. But a very, very simple tool of ensuring that we cover every different angle off with any open innovation project. Before I show you some real examples, I just wanted to address this software piece of the puzzle. Clearly, once we get to a position where we want to do things at scale, where we want to engage people that we haven't engaged before, we may not know where those people are physically, and doing it on software gives us a number of different advantages. It is not the complete answer, but obviously it has a significant role to play. First thing it does for us is it gives us scale. So it ensures that we can have hundreds of thousands of people, if we want, participate in our process. It also gives us structure. So we can group people into communities, we can keep different groups apart, we can pull groups together as we need to, and we can manage the content in an effective way through the same consistent, coherent decision-making process. So no matter whether we get an idea, an insight from a customer or from a supplier, we can make sure we judge things in the right way, managed by our innovation team, not distinct according to where it entered the organization or the process it went through. So people can participate wherever they are, whatever location they're in. Obviously, we can cover off the language issue as well. So for people that we're wishing to engage with speak Mandarin, we can provide the process in Mandarin. We don't have to necessarily speak that ourselves. We certainly don't need the whole enterprise to speak it to be able to engage that community. We can give it visibility, so we can put it online. We can make it visible publicly to people. We can market around it. Importantly, it retains all our information. So as we carry out different innovation activities, some campaign-based, some open, some with suppliers, some internally, we build up this repository of knowledge, insights, and expertise on which we can call later on. Now we know what software can do for us. Obviously, the process piece has a big part to play as well, and here are some examples. So let's have a look at some programs that we've worked on. So here are 6 different ones, very, very different types of open innovation activity. I'm going to take you through the Hershey's example and also the Osram EndtoEnd Consortium example as 2 very different but interesting open innovation stories that you may have seen already or you're going to see in the future. So let's look at, I think, Hershey's first of all, and let's plot them on this open innovation matrix. So 2 parallel programs, one partner-focused, one customer-focused. And you're going to see the customer-focused one available for consumers probably in the new year. That's going to be a public portal for you to go and collaborate with customers. Let's just track the partner-led open innovation through the path. So it's co-creation activity, looking at selected partners that we want to work with, driven by new business development, and we're looking for solutions, new solutions from partners for commercial joint benefit. And we're going to use the joint engagement model for that particular implementation. So this is something we're going to do by invitation only, and we're going to have the appropriate disclaimers in place and legal protections. So very simple. We can see that we have ticked off each of the key areas of the open innovation matrix on our map. So moving on, let's look about the EndtoEnd example. Completely different scenario. This is a consortium of 28 different organizations, competitors, partners, academics working together for one common aim. And for any of you that don't know about EndtoEnd, this is a really interesting project. The European group for lighting recognized that they wanted to make a step change in lighting technology. Being constantly undermined by cheaper providers in the market, they recognized the differentiation they could bring would be to bring the best knowledge and expertise together really effectively. So they set up the EndtoEnd group. It's a consortium of disparate parties, building contractors, semiconductor manufacturers, academics, and said, okay, here's one common challenge, let's work together on this. Let's look for the next generation of lighting systems by combining different aspects of what we do and creating new products and new services to support that. And the idea is that this should have benefit for all organizations. And this is really unique, especially because it actually has competitors working together. So the organization that ran this is a company called Osram, and as participating they had Philips. Normally two competitors working together for a common aim. So a really unique project. Let's plot it on the matrix. So it's a co-creation project supporting both suppliers, partners, and the expert community. Driver behind it was purely R&D for the purposes of this project, and they were looking for new solutions. Commercial joint benefit, a closed open innovation model, which meant it wasn't open to the general public. It was open to 220 specific experts under a framework of IP protection. So let's try and give you a bit more information. Let's look at them on the wheel. So was there a vested interest? Absolutely. These 28 organizations had signed up to a common reason to work together. So clear vested interest encompassing all the 28 organizations. What was the relationship like? Well, that was actually established through this EndTEend program, and having a having a portal through which they could share and collaborate helped improve that relationship. The model of engagement, well, yep, technically we knew who all those people were, we knew we could invite them and we could provide a solution very effectively that one party in the group would run, that was Osram. And actually we had all of the organizations had already signed up to legal protections in place before they started. So that, again, was covered off nice and easily. So on our wheel, they scored really nicely. On the face of it, this might sound like a nightmare project, but because of the work they'd done up front, it meant that supporting them with an open innovation initiative was relatively straightforward. So let's have a look at a bit more detail, because I think that this is helpful to us. If you can imagine across the middle there, that blue path is a very simple process that an organization will go through. So creating a challenge, questions associated with that challenge that we're going to pose to groups of people, we'll allow people to submit ideas, carry out reviews, make selections, and then take things through to implementation. In the case of this, the process is run by Osram, and they own those blue phases. But they also invited the other 27 organizations to participate in the red phases. So they could submit ideas, they could review ideas, and they could be part of the selection process. And then they would make decisions on which ones were going to be implemented. So we had, as I mentioned, 220 people participate, and all the third parties could share, vote, comment, and collaborate and work together. So securely we keep those various activities separate, appropriate to the need that we had at any particular time. So here's a little example of the portal that they had. And what they were working around was creating new clusters of technologies, bringing together different expertise from different industries, but also mapping those against use cases, so applications of light. So what might an evening lighting situation be for a modern boutique hotel? So a really impressive process, really impressive project, and a really good example of interesting open innovation activity happening in practice. So just to round up and try and bring some of this stuff together, let's have a look at a roadmap for open innovation. I think the first thing, like with any project, we need to be very clear about what our objectives are. Be very clear what you're looking for. You use things like this matrix to help plot the path down the journey. So have we covered everything off? Have we ticked every box? Because if we have any gaps, we need to think about why. Anybody that hasn't done idea management, idea generation internally, we'd always recommend starting off to do that, because you need to test and fine-tune your approach internally before you go externally. And the reason for that is you need to ensure that your process for managing the content that you generate is effective and robust. What you don't want to do is to go out to a strategic partner, generate huge amounts of enthusiasm and ideas, and not be able to manage the content that you receive. That will simply set people's expectations higher, and you won't be able to deliver against it. So let's fine-tune the question, fine-tune the approach internally first. Third part of the process, let's focus on which targets are best placed to suit any particular need that we have. Let's put the innovation team front and center of that. Let's work with the lawyers, let's work with the procurement groups that know where our existing contracts are, and let's segment the customer groups that we have and make sure that we focus on the right groups at the right time in the right way. So as we progress, we're going to use our employees to support the discussion, ensure that we have the best expertise on both sides of the commercial fence working together under the common legal framework and common guidelines. And of course we need to do the standard stuff about acting on the outcomes that we see communicating effectively, and making sure this is a robust and sustainable process. So, just to summarize, we tend to think about groups in low risk, medium risk, and higher risk categories. It's not really a recognition of risk, it's more a recognition of how appropriate they are for supporting our innovation programs. And to close down this before we take a couple of questions, if you think about your open innovation ecosystem right now, it is quite chaotic. You get ideas coming into the organization from all over the place, and it's challenging to put an effective process in place to coordinate all of those insights, those business proposals, that knowledge, those ideas, and manage those in an effective way. So by using software to support that, yes, that's going to do some good things, but we do need to focus and we do need to prioritize our time and our energies in a very effective way. So think about ranking third parties, third-party groups, and making sure that you're focusing your time on viable open innovation partners, at least to start off with, before you get too adventurous. And try and focus on those third parties that are best motivated to support you. Simply suppliers and partners are an underinvested group of people, and as you've seen from the Osram example, getting people with a common vested interest together is a really effective and interesting thing to do. So the other thing that software is very helpful doing is keeping the parts of the process that you want public, and those that you want commercially protected. So consider which phases of the program you wish to open up and which ones you want to keep closed. So you want to just collaborate with an organization, make sure that's what we just open up. We don't have to open up everything to everybody. And I think that covers everything that I was planning to discuss for today. We still have 15 minutes for questions, so I'm going to ask Monique to help me coordinate the questions that have come in whilst I've been talking. And yeah, I'm going to hand back to Monique for a second.
Hi, thanks Colin. This was really interesting. So now looking at the questions, and I've got one person asking if we are sending out the copy of this deck. Yep, sure. I'll be sending out a link to watch the recording as well as one to the deck sometime this week. And if you have any questions or if you need more information, please just contact us. Colin's information is here. You can reach us at info@hypeinnovation.com as well, and we will try to get to answer all of your questions. And another question would be regarding sustainability. How do you keep it fresh, keep people engaged and submitting ideas?
Okay, good question, and I think this is especially relevant when we think about open innovation implementation. If we just do the comparison between an internal program and an external program to start off with, an internal program, you're dealing with the same audience over and over again, and so providing you're sustainable with your communications, giving people feedback at the right time to the right groups, then we can make sure that we keep people engaged. And ensuring that we do different activities, not just the same stuff, not just always doing cost savings or always doing product innovation, for example. We can ensure that people, we get different participants at different times, and people flowing through the system in a healthy, effective way. In an open innovation environment, it's just a little bit more challenging, and we need to give it a little bit more thought. So the answer to the question is going to be different to the type of activity that you do. So if you have one stream of activity, let's use an example, which is going out to a supplier and creating together with that supplier. There's going to be some softer things that you're going to do away from the formality of running innovation campaigns, which are going to be crucial. So that means following up on the activities that you've done, all the usual things that you would do with any commercial relationship. Also, I think sometimes you're going to have to let people know this is a one-off exercise. So, yep, we'd love a sustainable, regular innovation activity, but actually we only have the capacity to manage this once every 6 months. So let's just set the right expectations with the right audiences at the right time. But when you do find third-party groups that are really energized and really enthusiastic about helping you, repeat the exercise where you can. Make sure that you change the theme, harness that expertise, make sure you have the right groups internally and externally participating in that. So just to summarize, take the right approach with the right groups at the right time. If it's a one-off activity, make that very clear. Make sure you have the capacity to manage the content that you've seen, so there's nothing worse than setting expectations that you can't deliver on. But when you do find those communities that are really engaged and really enthusiastic and offering you great content, try to find great reasons to do it more regularly. Even if it's on a quarter-by-quarter basis, just keep them engaged, keep them supporting your process. And obviously, if we were engaged directly with you, we could give you more detail on some of the finer points that are associated with that.
Okay.
Any other questions, Monique?
Yep, I've got one more question. That's asking about crowdsourcing via social networks. Can you tell us anything about that?
Okay, so this is going out. Yeah, so this is going out to the obviously the community, the consumer end of areas. There is a challenge in actually generating significant business value out of crowdsourced activities. I think we need to be very clear about what crowdsourcing is and what it isn't. There's a difference between a collaborative creative campaign which generates new ideas and considerations based on a challenge versus a crowdsourcing challenge. Crowdsourcing challenge is usually used where we have a relatively simple activity, a relatively simple need, and we don't know where the answer sits, but we know it sits out there somewhere. And we either want that group of people to come to an aggregate opinion so that we make the right decision, or we need to find a way of getting at the knowledge or expertise that's hidden. So usually much simpler challenges and much simpler activities in a collaborative campaign. So with that in mind, when it comes to going out to the sort of the more social groups and engaging those types of people, I think it's really about recognizing what our expectations should be. They're good when it comes to making selections and decisions. So perhaps we have 10 product options we want to take to market. We only have budget to do 7. Then it might be a good idea, and we're seeing evidence of this already in some businesses, where you can put those 7 out there and say, hey, which ones would you like to invest in? Which ones do you think are worthwhile? I think that's a great crowdsource technique, and it works really effectively. Those sorts of situations are fantastic. I think where we're actually going to try and create something, do something new, then let's be a bit more considerate, let's be a bit more careful. It's a different type of process, and often that's really about combining expertise. Crowdsourcing doesn't necessarily combine expertise, but it combines opinion. Okay. Any final questions before we close down?
There are no more questions so far. Please don't hesitate to ask us. But yep, no more new questions.
Okay, great. So those of you who want them will get a copy of the slides. And thank you ever so much for sparing your time today. Hope it was valuable. Please feel free to get in touch directly with me, colin.nelson@height.de, if you have any questions that occur to you afterwards. And of course, if you want to refer to the white paper, again, just emails on info@hypeinnovation.com, and we'll get a copy of that over to you as well.
Great, thanks Colin, and thanks everyone for attending, and I hope to see